Last Pint Productions presents the New Way Podcast with Ben and Matt. The New Way Podcast contains adult content such as summer movies, sex, and sour apple-flavored condoms. But not that last part. Listener discretion is advised.
I had a little problem with substances, and I ended up doing things, no two ways about it, in the street, but at a mansion.
Genetically engineered to be superior so as to lead others to peace in a world at war.
What's the S stand for?
It's not an S. On my world, it means hope.
Danny, we're not on acid. We didn't suck each other's dicks.
James Franco didn't suck any dick last night. Now I know y'all are tripping.
Everybody wants to be naked and famous. Everybody wants to be just like me and make it.
Will you help teach me about this? What is it? A new way?
Do it! Damn it! Just well, why don't you open it now, Ben?
Is that ready?
No, just do it.
Do it.
Just do it. This
you
is
do
it.
it.
We're recording already.
You do it.
This is the New Way with Ben and Matt. Thanks for tuning in today.
I was just timing it up. I was just going to start talking as soon as you started talking.
Sucks. Well, welcome back, everyone.
Matt's like, yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah, thanks again for tuning in this week.
To this rainy evening
yes.
podcast.
If you'll hear in the background, that's the wonderfully...
I am urinating constantly in the background of this podcast, all over Ben's patio.
I think that would be some sort of record.
Yeah, it's gonna be.
It's gonna be.
Yeah. So you guys
We're also videotaping this. It's simulcast on Guinness.com.
People are gonna see my penis?
No. I wonder if Guinness.com, I'm assuming that means the beer, not Guinness Book of World Records.
Who's more powerful?
The beer, I would assume.
Really?
Well, maybe 10 years ago, the other Guinness would be more powerful.
Are they both spelled the same?
Yes. Guinness Book and Guinness Beer are both Guiness, I believe.
Guinness.com. Yes, the beer.
It's the beer.
It's the beer.
I was right.
Guinness World Records is the other Guinness.
Uh-huh.
For those of you out there wondering how much Guinness you need to drink to get into the Guinness Book of World Records, we just gave you the pathway.
Or for people looking for the simulcast of Matt urinating on the back porch of mine.
Also, sponsored by Guinness.
Sponsored by Guinness. An idea that was born from drinking too much Guinness.
This is true.
Anyways, of course, you can go on the website, which you might be listening to it from now, lastpintprod.com. Or you are one of the people who we tricked into liking us on Facebook, which is then you followed a link from our page that said like, hey, look at this cute kitty video. And you've now landed on our podcast, which started playing automatically, and you are struggling to turn off.
What? There's a penis?
While your boss is saying, what the fuck is that noise?
I don't know why your boss talks like that.
What the
fuck is that noise? Get back to work right now. I'm a crazy Persian man.
This is a character that's born in my head, Matt.
I'm very curious, actually. Like, I want to dig into our analytics a little bit, because whenever I go on Buzzsprout, I see these are not big numbers. We're talking like 50 plays of a podcast. I'm sure I'm good for 10 of those when I just keep listening to my intros over and over again to entertain me on iTunes. But there have to be people out there either finding us on iTunes or accidentally stumbling on our website. I'm very curious if you're out there and you have found your way to one of these podcasts and you're listening, please send us an email. We just want to know how you found us. Like, and what were your thoughts when you arrived? Like, oh good, highbrow film conversation. And then we talk about me masturbating to Tom Hanks.
You were like, great, it's so wonderful that these special guys are doing that. Wait a second. They're not handicapped? Oh, okay.
The jig is up.
Yeah, the jig is up. Exactly. But yeah, so thanks again for tuning in. We're coming up on some fun stuff. Like I said, we want to get our bud Braden back in here. I'm sorry,
that really sounded like butt Braden back in here. Like, we want to get back to that butt braiding we used to do before we started this. Butt braiding. You know, where you braid your butt hairs together. Yeah, butt braiding. What else is it going to be? Sorry, Braden.
Oh, God, that's awful. Yeah, we're going to get Braden Danner back out on here. The much storied Nick Santa Croce is going to be making his
we haven't talked about him in a while. So
yes, we haven't talked about Nick in a while.
We'll drop some hints about the fabled and maybe mythical Nick Santa Croce.
The enormity of those podcasts is it defies description.
We're not sure that our podcast service can handle it, but we're taking out extra insurance.
We're going to work on it.
He's going to blow this mother up.
And then we're also going to have the incomparable Greg Klein back in with some shenanigans. We are going to do another pubcast at some point.
Maybe even bring Nick in for a pubcast.
Well, I was thinking, because we definitely wanted to do 2 with Nick.
Yeah, we have another surprise one.
And another fun surprise one that we're going to be doing with Nick. But and then of course we were going to have a couple of women come in and school us on the art of sex.
Once we saved up enough money to hire women
to hire them
to come in and talk to us.
It's like, wait, so you just want us to talk on there? You don't want a blowjob while you're doing it?
I can't fit that inside me. It's huge.
That's a big microphone. I just feel like I had to.
Did we really just hire like 2 Chattanooga hookers? Like
that was not Chattanooga.
That was a really like
that was like Mobile. That was Mobile, Alabama. That was like Panama City. That was like the cheapest prostitutes.
They were so backwoods sounding, yet so polite.
Mobile.
So it's going to be $10 if you want to put it in my hoo-ha. And it's going to only be $5 if you want to put it in my mouth.
That's the way it works.
Oh, God almighty.
And then after the podcast is over, they're like, yeah, that's going to cost a lot more.
I've done a lot of stuff in my life, but you boys talk about some sick shit.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, we do have some fun stuff coming up, so continue to stay tuned and we'll keep you guys updated and keep everything refreshed on the podcast. But anyways, today it's the end of summer, de facto end of summer, because Riddick came out,
and because Riddick signaled the end of summer.
He did.
And there's pumpkin beer.
It's true.
So that also is kind of a signal that hey, those long lazy days of summer, school started, twins were born. It's a new season, and we figure what better way to celebrate the new season than to talk about the season that's just finished.
Right. I know we talked about like summer movies in general. We never really did a summer movie preview, but this time we're going to do the Siskel and Ebert summer movie wrap up.
Is it the first time we're going to talk about movies released sometime within your lifespan? You who are listening out there.
You're such a douchebag about that sort of thing. I mean, come on. I try to mix in everything.
We each bring our own magic to the podcast, and people love both sides. It just happens that your lists have at least 2 movies made before film was invented.
We're going to talk in the summer summer
1913? No, that's not what we were planning?
Exactly. Because like this past summer, I'm going to be like, but what I was really excited for was the Dutch re-release of La Fontaine, the 1947 brilliant film by Lecoq Camille.
I had to drive to a small theater in North Dakota, but it was worth the trip.
There was one static shot that was 14 minutes long that was absolutely enlightening.
And then a moment of a man eating pudding for literally an hour, and I was rapt.
Did you know that Andy Warhol made movies called, like, he made Sleep, which is just an hour and a half of somebody sleeping?
He was genius that way.
Oh, yeah,
or
a genius.
A genius.
So these
just
movies actually
you don't
exist.
understand the art of sleep like that, don't knock it.
Well, he also made a movie called Fuck, which
should be, what, about 2 minutes?
Well, that's the thing. If you already knew the concept of sleep, I was kind of excited about the concept of fuck. But apparently it's not, it doesn't work the same way.
I heard it's a prequel to Sleep.
It's a preview. It's a preview before the movie.
It's one of those, at the beginning you're like, this looks really good. And by then you're like, I don't want to do that again. I'm not going to go see
It's
that.
like, you know those Pixar movies where you watch the opening cartoon and it's way better than the Pixar movie?
the short.
The short thing. That's the way it works.
That's amazing.
So Andy Warhol was brilliant. Way ahead
He
of
was
his time.
so ahead of his time. Amazing.
Yeah, so that's better than anything we're going to talk about from this past summer.
This is true. So yeah, I kind of figured we just sort of, I've got the kind of the calendar really, and we kind of go through the summer and sort of, because what's interesting to me is sort of the progression. Every summer I get excited. I'm like, okay, there's going to be some clunkers, but some summers they're just a really good mixture of different types of movies. And one of the things this summer has been attacked for, unfairly or not. Okay, over there?
I'm sorry.
Still thinking about it?
No, I was looking down at my list and there were some great typos in here.
Well, you'll have to get to those.
Oh yeah, I'll get to that.
No, I mean, this summer is being attacked quite a bit for being a very weak.
I'm sorry, before we go anywhere, I have to do one more important title.
Oh no.
White House Brown. Oh,
that is pretty amazing. I was exhaling, so I didn't want to destroy myself and laugh too hard, but White House Brown is pretty...
Okay, so...
Olympic has fallen. How did we miss both of those? It's fantastic. That's a great double feature.
Yes. So let's talk about the summer.
So yeah, the summer going into it, I had some ones I was super excited about. You know, Iron Man 3, I was definitely on board to be excited about, and Superman or Man of Steel. But there weren't like a lot of other ones, like the comedies I was looking forward to. This Is the End and The World's End. Those were kind of on my list. But it was sort of a light summer as far as like things I was really excited to see, which I think is part of the problem of why like the summer kind of fizzled, is that there were movies that were hyped and things that people wanted to see, but I don't think it was as stacked as a lot of other summers. Like some of the big tent poles were ones that were kind of, you knew they were probably going to fail, like The Lone Ranger, you know, is kind of one of those famous ones this summer.
Well, here's the interesting thing is I feel like, I mean, last year was a pretty good summer. Pretty big summer. And while the tent poles existed this year, and we'll kind of, you know, of course, kind of go through them, the summer started out pretty strong because a lot of the movies that were expected to perform well until basically July did perform well. Even those that people thought may not, you know, may underperform by some, you know, degree or something along those lines. So I think that it was kind of an interesting summer because it started strong, and then July and August was pretty weak. Not weak with the caliber of film, because there were some good films that came out.
Yeah.
Especially sort of the under the radar stuff. But I'm just saying from a monetary perspective, nobody was really making their money back at that point.
Well, we should warn you out there, by the way, I just thought of this right now. We are going to veer very heavily into spoiler territory. It's just, we've seen these movies now.
Yes, this is the summer. I mean, these are summer movies. They're probably going to be on Blu-ray tomorrow. Some of them actually are. Yeah. One of them came out on Blu-ray today, which is Star Trek.
Yeah, and Iron Man 3 is already out, so...
Is it already out?
Yeah.
Crazy. Everything goes so fast nowadays. But one of the things I did want to mention is because it's funny, because last summer seemed like a very big summer. Because we had... Wait, was last year Dark Knight Rises, or was that 11?
Last year was The Avengers and Dark Knight Rises.
Right, okay. So we had both of them in the same year. The big tentpole year that's what's shaping up to be the big tentpole year is 2015. Because 2015, you're going to have the Marvel Phase 3, the first of the Marvel Phase 3 films, which is the Avengers 2.
No, that's the end of Phase 2 is Avengers 2.
You're right, the end of Phase 2. Avengers 2, there's Ant-Man.
Yeah, which is the beginning of Phase 3.
Which is the beginning of Phase 3. So you got those two films. You've got the Man of Steel sequel, which now has Ben Affleck Batman.
Batfleck.
So you already have these huge sequel comic book movies. But then there are tons of other movies that have been slated for summer releases. There's a Spielberg. Is Nolan's Interstellar coming out?
Yeah, I think that sounds about right.
So there's all sorts of films outside of even the well-worn comic book territory or sequel territory, where there are a few huge films that are supposed to be coming out that summer. And Avatar 2.
Oh, God.
Right. There's all sorts of stuff coming out. So it is interesting how it kind of ebbs and flows with some summers being bigger than others. But,
yeah, and it's been, and last summer was a good summer. Largely, really, you kind of have to look at those two temples of the Dark Knight Rises and Avengers, while not, universally tentpoles, universally loved, were majority enjoyed and liked. And I think this summer was much more divisive. There are ones that kind of everyone agreed to hate, but the other ones were pretty much kind of split 50-50 of half the audience, you have two people go to see the same movie and come out with completely different responses to it. And we'll get into those, but let's start off.
Because it's really interesting, and I'll make this point a little bit, but after, and I didn't even think about it this way, because I thought about all the movies that I'd seen. I went through all of the released films this summer, the independent films and the mainstream films, and I didn't see a lot of independent films. I usually am better about that, but with a almost about to give birth wife that then gave birth in early August, I haven't caught up on nearly as much of many of the independent films as I usually would have. So really, I can't speak to it as well as I would have. But my movie of the summer, mainstream movie of the summer, is way, way, way different than I ever would have anticipated it being before the summer started.
I think I know what that one is, but I think it's the only one I haven't seen on the list. So, but maybe interesting.
You've seen it.
Okay, well, for me, what's funny enough is probably my favorite big movie of the summer was the first one to come out that kicked off the summer, which was Iron Man 3, which I thought was a nice return after the Avengers, and definitely a nice kind of reversal after Iron Man 2, which is still one of those movies that I can't ever exactly put my finger on why I don't love it. It seems like on paper everything's done right, but it's not. And I think I think
everyone agrees with you on that, though.
Yeah.
Iron Man 2 just kind of underwhelmed.
Yeah, and Iron Man 3 I thought hit on all cylinders. I thought there was great action. There was tons of great Tony Stark fun moments. We're trying a new beer tonight, Dogfish Head 61, brewed with Syrah grape must.
Yes,
must.
Grape must.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Grape must. Anyways, I thought it was great. I think there were a few people that didn't really like the reveal of the Mandarin for what he was. I thought it was a ton of fun to watch Ben Kingsley toy around with being the Joker half the time and being just this crazy Ben Kingsley British actor the other half the time. It really worked for me. Pepper Potts was good. I didn't mind her hopping into the suit. I thought that was good. And I will hand it to Shane Black and Robert Downey Jr. in the casting of the kid. But there's a section of the movie that when I heard about it in reviews, I was like, oh my God. Oh yeah, Tony Stark's going to spend half an hour with an impressionable kid during the movie and learn something and grow from it. And I'm thinking just, this is usually done so poorly and so obviously. And it's one of the few times that device really worked. And it worked, I think, definitely from the performances and the direction and especially the writing. So kudos to the Iron Man 3 crew.
Cool. I'll actually go and tell you, since you said that you thought that was the best, basically, of the movie. As far as expectations versus what I saw on screen, like I said, because that weighs in a lot. And it also one of the things I explained very early on in the podcast and that Matt understands is that I judge movies based off of the one that I found. I feel the movie that accomplished all of its goals the best for me this summer, and the one that I found the most wholly entertaining, was This Is the End.
I'm totally on board with that.
That was my favorite movie of the summer, which I never would have anticipated that at the beginning of the summer. So I was really, really, because the thing is it's ridiculous enough. It embraces the ridiculous enough to work. So I think it's brilliant. At times, it's very, very funny movie. Definitely the best money I spent going to the theater this year. Probably.
Yeah, I my brother and I laughed our butts off at it. I thought everybody brought really their A game to everything in it. And this is kind of a fun way to maneuver through this podcast, of kind of maybe go to linking ones, because the two movies I was very much looking forward to in totally different ways, which oddly enough had a similar premise, were This Is the End and The World's End. I just watched The World's End,
which I haven't seen yet,
last weekend. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around how I feel about that movie. And it's another one of those that, unfortunately, I kind of fell into that. I didn't read a lot of reviews. I just kind of read the Cliff's Notes of reviews, and it was kind of this universal praise. Mainly because I read geek community ones, and they're big fans of Edgar Wright and Nick Frost and Simon Pegg. Understandably so, as am I. And it's funny, it's very much half of Shaun of the Dead and half of Hot Fuzz. They take elements of both, and then they tie it together with an older cast, and it's a movie about nostalgia. I mean, most of Edgar Wright's stuff tends to be kind of a allegory or a story, based, I think, a little bit on either a coming of age or a growing up or a getting more responsible, that kind of idea. Sure. Hot Fuzz a little less so. That's a little bit more on the parody side. At the World's End, the one thing that upset me, and it wasn't that I was going into it like expecting this uproarious comedy, is I didn't really find the humor to be there enough, especially once you start to get through the movie and you're realizing that they're not really celebrating any kind of drinking culture or pub crawl or anything like that. It's these are supposed to be sort of a sad thing that these guys are revisiting, even though you want to get this nostalgia for your childhood, that kind of thing. And it was a little melancholy, and has a very strange kind of 180 at the end, I will say. It has an epilogue that's a little bit strange. But I recommend it. There's a lot of Edgar Wright isms in it. They do the pub fighting. He's made like a whole fight style out of how they fight in the pub with these things. There's a lot of clever things that are foreshadowed about the movie. But, yeah, I'm a little bit of a mixed bag on it, oddly enough.
Interesting.
And I was surprised.
Well, yeah, that is pretty interesting. I mean, that's one of the ones that I missed, unfortunately. I made a list of the ones that I missed. I didn't see the Line Ranger, which is how it was written on here.
the cocaine cowboy, the Line Ranger. I did see Lone Ranger.
Yeah, which you thought was actually better than was advertised.
And I know, and to also let you out there know, one of the reasons why I wound up seeing more of these than Ben, is I tend to download a lot of summer movies when I can find a good bootleg. And if it's something I'm not really going to go see in the theater to begin with, I'll go ahead and download it just to kind of take in, same as with the Oscar race. I kind of try to watch all the Oscar movies, try to watch most of the big summer movies. Lone Ranger, I think, got more shit 100% than it deserved. It's tonally a mess, as Ben and I have discussed before, are a lot of Gore Verbinski movies.
All of them.
Yeah, pretty much.
The Ring.
Yeah. I advise some of you out there to go ahead and watch this movie with an open mind. Don't go into it with any baggage. And I want to recommend it to families, except part of the problem with the tone is that they veer too far into the PG-13 territory for no ungodly reason. And for a Disney movie, I'm very surprised that it's much darker than, say, The Avengers, which is a PG-13 for violence, but it's cartoonish violence.
Right.
No one rips a heart out of someone in The Avengers, which they do in Lone Ranger, and then he eats it. This is, that's a tough one to swallow for kids, even though it's the great William Fichtner.
Yeah. But I didn't see Epic, which was the animated film.
I didn't see that one.
I didn't see 42, which Matt saw, which he said was...
For fuck's sake.
I mean, and really that was like very beginning of April, so I mean, that was... I still consider that kind of a summer movie, but...
Please, anyone out there, if you've seen 42 and you can give me an intelligent argument as to why it's not one of the worst movies ever made, please just give me a call. I've got to hear why, and I understand why certain people like that movie. I don't understand how anyone with a film brain could get behind it. Terrible movie. Insulting.
I didn't see The Hangover 3.
I saw the bootleg of that. That's another one I was unfortunately optimistic for no reason. And it is what it is. It's at least not as bad as the second one, but it's also not a lot of laughs.
Sure. I didn't see Now You See Me. I didn't see The Internship.
I haven't seen Internship. I tried. I got through 30 minutes of Now You Pee on Me, and I couldn't do it.
I didn't see The Heat.
Didn't see that either.
I didn't see White House Brown.
I didn't see that either.
I didn't see Rid Doc, which Riddick came out this past week. I think I might try taking my kids to the drive-in theater, and so we can feed them like while we're watching the movie. Just hop in the back at the kids if we need to or whatever, and they'll sleep most of it. I thought it was a pretty brilliant.
I'm hoping Greg will maybe Greg, when he gets in his podcast, he's chomping at the bit to go see Riddick. He's probably going to catch it this week, so maybe he'll give us a little write up on that if you don't catch it.
Yeah, sure. I didn't see Kick-Ass 2 yet. Which I know that you did, and you said you were a little on. Yeah. I didn't see Planes, I didn't see Two Guns, and I didn't see Red 2.
I didn't see Red 2, which I kind of wanted to, because I liked the first one, surprisingly.
The first Red is kind of it's one of those movies that really shouldn't work, in the same way that, like, movies that have, where you have the sort of gung-ho concept, like, shoot 'em up, or something along those lines, they don't work. But Red works, I think, inherently based off of the kind of the charisma of the leads.
Absolutely, and I think that's almost right there. That's all you even need to say.
Malkovich almost single-handedly sells the first film.
You've got Malkovich is amazing. You've got, of course, whenever you have Helen Mirren, she, no matter what movie she's in, she manages to bring
and Helen Mirren's
class.
Titties.
Yeah, like, and she can't help but bring the class as she can't help bring the titties. Two Guns we watched at our office get together. The entire staff of our office went to the fancy iPic Theater in Boca Raton. Watched Two Guns. Two Guns is the first half moves at a great pace, and it totally works. You've got Wahlberg playing his most Wahlberg-y, fast talking. When Wahlberg goes into his, like, Vince Vaughn, but it's that Boston Southie version of Vince Vaughn, and he's just, like, talking about making all these protein shakes. And he's gonna be working out, and it's gonna be amazing.
Which, if you guys want to see a fun video, you should check out, the Mark Wahlberg version of Iron Man. I'm Iron Man. Where it's...
You're fucking Iron Man? You're fucking Iron Man.
I'm a fucking Iron Man right now. I was like,
that was bar none my favorite part of it.
Hey, Jarvis, what's the score of the Sox game? The Red Sox are beating the Yankees 6-2. What's the deal with what's the deal with the accent, Jarvis? You a fucking faggot?
Well worth it. But yeah, Two Guns is fun. It just is sort of, as all those ones are like the high concept graphic novels, it can never sustain the setup, through the end. But it does have a wonderfully creepy Bill Paxton in it, which gives it instantaneous.
Bill Paxton, bad guy, always like
with a mustache.
That's a selling point.
Oh yeah, Bill Paxton with a mustache playing a sleazy bad guy. Awesome stuff.
Anyways, yeah. So those are the movies that I basically didn't catch, but then I've got my list of all the ones that we basically I know I saw, and I think a couple of these you didn't see. Did you ever finish The Conjuring?
No, I didn't.
Because The Conjuring might be my second favorite movie of the summer, if I'm talking about just expectation versus what it actually was. I'm not a huge James Wan fan. A lot of people just, want to suck his dong because they think that he is like the next coming.
Are they kind of the coming? That's his new movie. Are James Wan fans called wannabes?
That's really good. You should do that.
I should coin that. I should do that.
You should.
Should work that into my stand-up routine.
Yeah, absolutely. That stand-up routine. That...
this James Wan? Because a lot of people out there are clamoring for a James Wan joke in a stand-up routine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because, two wants make a right.
Hurts so good.
It's so bad. No, The Conjuring was fantastic. I think it maybe got a little bit too much praise. The bar it leaves for itself is still pretty high when it comes to matching the atmosphere made in that movie. And I love the fact that they show no gore whatsoever. There is no gore and so little blood that it's ridiculous. It's basically just old-fashioned creep show scares. The scariest part in the movie, you don't see a ghost. It's like all of a sudden they're like, oh, let's embrace the Jaws mentality where you really don't see it.
Yeah.
And you're seeing a character who sees the ghost, but you're seeing it and you don't see the ghost. Where it's like, she's standing right behind you.
Yeah.
And there's nothing there.
Oh, I did get to that part. That's where the two girls first have
In
to
the
go to
room.
the room. Yeah. It's right behind you.
That is a fantastic
Creepy. Because you're also
scene.
waiting that you're sure you're going to see this thing.
Exactly. When
So
you
you
don't.
start building up all this stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. You're expecting this creature or this awful thing to pop up behind it, but all you're doing is living this moment through the perspective of this child, but you're seeing it in the context of where this thing isn't there. And I found that incredibly effective.
In a deleted scene, though, they show the ghost and it's Bill Paxton.
Nah,
that's the only
with
the
a
only
mustache.
reveal that works. Where you're like, oh, that is much more frightening than what I had in my mind.
That's
It'd be an amazing movie.
It would be. But yeah, I really did like The Conjuring a lot. It has its problems. I don't understand why they had to introduce this stuff about the paranormal investigator's kid. And the link, I mean, honestly, it really had to do more with the other family. That was more interesting. Doing the other thing with the other kid in the other house just felt like an excuse for scares.
Yeah.
You didn't get that far.
No.
But where they had enough scares going on with just the house. But I thought that was a movie that met its expectations very well. But anyways, kind of going through, because I kind of was thinking of the ones that I thought were really good, sort of the ones that I didn't. I did like Iron Man 3 too. Not quite as much as you did, but
yeah.
I definitely could appreciate it. I thought World War Z was not bad.
I agree. World War Z was, again, another one I think, well, I mean, it did well enough, but I think it was kind of suffering from that bad word of mouth, although they're now talking about
a sequel.
Doing a sequel. So good for them. Yeah, it's a movie that a lot could have gone wrong with. That rewrite was, it's the one time that David Lindelof has been brought in to finish a movie and actually done an end. So maybe that's the problem. If he doesn't start it, he might be able to finish it properly. But, yeah, I think I love the last act. Might be my favorite part of the movie, actually. I like that small, intimate setting. But it's definitely a good flick.
Yeah. And then there are films that I have that I saw that I want to do a quick, Matt didn't see Pacific Rim. And that was something I saw in the theater in 3D, like on the big XD screen. And I had the most internally polarizing, reception of that movie I could ever possibly imagine, because on one side I'm like, this is the best movie of the year. And on the other hand, I'm like, this is the worst movie of the decade. So I have some forces inside of me. But I basically have the 8-year-old inside of me that used to watch 6 Godzilla movies in a row, fighting with the aspiring screenwriter that says, God, this is the most cliched and worst dialogue ever. But, I mean, to the people who made the film, you know, the very least I can say is that they sold what they had, what they were doing. And, you know, great. I hope that they make sequels. It's the type of movie that I'm excited to see succeed, because it's so much better than the Transformers.
Yes.
Because it embraces what it's doing. It embraces the B-movie sort of thing that it's doing, and just follows through full suit. And you actually can comprehend what's going on with the action.
Yeah, well, and I think that's a really important distinction. I think too often with summer movies, people make excuses of like, well, it's just trying to be a B movie. It's just trying to be a pop movie. But there's a way to make a good B movie.
Oh, absolutely.
And I mean, I'll go so far as, and this may not be a popular argument, but The Avengers is essentially
a B movie. No, it's just a really made.
But it's done. It's done. Everyone is in on any of the jokes that are going on. Everything is done on purpose, and it's not just a lazy, like...
Whedon is the king of the B. I mean, that Buffy, the entire series of Buffy, was basically like, okay, we're doing this serialized B-movie sort of plot thing, but we're going to be in on the joke on it, and we're gonna follow through. Everything Whedon's done, Firefly was like that, and that's one of the reasons why it succeeded, even though it didn't succeed financially at the time it was out. It has this huge legion of fans now. Everything Whedon does is sort of very kitschy and sort of in on that B-movie thing.
Yeah.
So...
For sure. There's one I don't remember if you saw, and I don't know if you're, or maybe not even counting it as some movie, although it was like a week after Iron Man, which is Great Gatsby. Did you see Gatsby?
No, Gatsby's in on mine.
Okay, I couldn't remember if you'd seen it.
I liked Gatsby, and although, same as you said, I think because you saw it before me, it's very on the nose. Like, there are portions of it where I was just like,
Yeah, and it's very difficult to. It's the same as another movie we all saw and we talked about on the podcast with my brother, Pain and Gain.
I have Pain and Gain on here too, which once again, it's like Pain and Gain is I laughed a lot in Pain and Gain, so I mean it has that going for it. It was funny. It succeeded in being funny at its moments. So.
But yeah, no, Pain and Gain and Gatsby I put in exactly the same bucket, which is that they're both movies that are perfectly tailored to the director, but the director can't help themselves from not becoming part of what the movies are attacking, their themes. In Michael Bay's, it's American excess and greed and bigger is better. And he gets so close to being in on the joke, and then he just can't help but be Bay at certain moments that don't really feed the plot of the movie. And the same for Gatsby. There are certain things that are... He's so in love with that lavish world, which is exactly what the movie is talking about.
It's like all of a sudden halfway through the Pain and Gain, you're just like, man, I wish this was a Coen Brothers movie. Or, oh, man, I wish this was like somebody else had kind of taken that stab, where otherwise it just devolves. Yes. Yeah. And Lerman does the exact same thing. I mean, I still remember that being one of the most accurate things I read about, because I enjoyed the movie, and I really, really enjoyed Leonardo DiCaprio in it.
Yes.
Probably one of the best castings of any character from a mainstream actor standpoint that I've seen in a long time. And I was very skeptical, because the thing is, I'm very hit or miss. I think that DiCaprio does really well. I mean, his effort is always there.
Yeah.
But there are certain roles that he just innately kills, like in Catch Me If You Can. Or, I mean, there are other, and then there are others where I just feel like there's this huge gap missing, like Shutter Island.
Yeah.
Where I'm just like, man, I know what he's going for here, but the character isn't working with Leo.
Yeah.
It was ideal and pretty much inspired casting to have him as Gatsby. And I would have never thought of, if somebody said cast the Great Gatsby, I never would have thought of Leonardo DiCaprio as Gatsby at all. It never would have even come to my mind. I could probably name...
See, that would pop into my head right away, actually.
No, it would not pop into my head.
Huh.
No, I would think of, if somebody told me Gatsby, I would think, I mean, I'm putting myself on the spot here about because there's there are some people that I was like, oh yeah, like I could see that person.
It's interesting that surprise to me. That is like one of those no-brainer ones. I'm like, oh yeah, of course. Who do you cast as this reclusive, handsome, complicated playboy?
Oh, funny enough, actually, one thing that actually popped in my head is Patrick Wilson would have been a really good Gatsby. I think.
Way old.
No, he's not.
For that role,
40 years old.
Seems older. He seems 10 years older than DiCaprio. DiCaprio's too old for Gatsby, but that's beside the point. DiCaprio can play younger. I buy Gatsby as being 30s with DiCaprio, which is what he's supposed to be.
I thought like Bradley Cooper at some point, but
Cooper be interesting. I never know with Cooper what his full range is. I know I like him in a lot of things, but I'm never quite sure. I'm very curious to see that new David O. Russell movie that looks batshit off the hook, just craziness.
Yeah,
but,
absolutely. Anyways.
Okay, so here's a movie I'm very interested to talk about, because I don't think we discussed it much together, and it was a big movie this summer. It just came out on Blu-ray today, which is Star Trek Into Darkness. Right. Star Trek Into Darkness, the more I look back on it, the more I find it to be a fairly disappointing sequel to a movie that I really enjoyed. I think the first Star Trek, for whatever problems you find with it, I think falls into that really good B-movie category. I think the cast is fantastic. I love the performances. I'm on board every time each one of those characters is getting their moment to shine. I love every single minute of it. And I found the second movie just missing every single opportunity that the first movie made good on.
Well, no, I like the villain better in Into Darkness than I do in the first Star Trek.
I would, but I think he's misused. I think he's a better villain.
There are multiple things I can say that I like about Into Darkness. I'm basically kind of playing a little bit of a devil's advocate here, because I think we're sort of in the same thing. doesn't quite live up to the. Now, I think I'm higher on it than you are. I think the best moments in Into Darkness probably even surpass the first Star Trek. Like, I think a lot of the set pieces in the first Star Trek movie aren't as good as the character moments. Whereas the set pieces are sort of the main thing. Now, here, I don't like the sort of revisit bastardization of Spock dying in Wrath of Khan and switching the roles. I think that's it's superfluous. It's ridiculous. There was no reason to revisit a perfect moment. Like, I understand how that sounds so good. And it sounds like this great idea when you're brainstorming and being like, oh, we can do the exact same scene but reverse the roles.
Yeah.
That was very ill-advised. And I still remember I was audibly sighing in the theater, just being like, come on, seriously. But that being said, Benedict Cumberbatch is probably the best iteration of a villain in a Trek movie since Wrath of Khan.
Yeah.
So,
he just shouldn't be Khan. Like,
he shouldn't be.
They were tethered so much to, we have to do our Khan, instead of just saying, let's just make a villain who has maybe some of the same, because really his Khan's interests and things that he's doing in this movie aren't really visiting Wrath of Khan. They're visiting the original series and Khan's backstory a little bit, but they're different enough that you could easily have just said, this is another character.
I agree.
That we're bringing in, because everything in that movie starts to be built around this reveal that is, it's the sour point in what's being built as a great character. He doesn't need the reveal.
Agree.
Him just being who he is, he's a formidable foe physically. He's even more formidable mentally. I think there are a million ways they could have kind of gone around that as a different thing, and it hurts. And what's really funny with that movie is that I remember reading reviews before it came out from kind of the geek community, and they were ripping it apart. And I was like, get over yourself. Because I remember a lot of people doing that with the original Trek as well, especially after it hit and everyone was like comfortable to bash it because it became popular. I think a lot of people jumped on that and fine, okay, it's got lens flares and it's got some logic issues with the time travel and blah, 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 blah. But with the second one, it was one of those where I was fighting for the movie, actively watching it to, like, prove them wrong.
Sure.
Like, I'm going to enjoy this movie. And I got out of there and I didn't hate it by any means. It was just like, And it's one of those, like, it came out on DVD today. I really have no interest to revisit the movie. Whereas the first one I watched 4 times in the theater because the score, everything just totally worked for me in it. And just this one, unfortunately, fell flat, which is too bad. It's a great cast, and it should have been better.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I fell on Elysium.
Very much so.
Also, Elysium was another movie where I felt like the first half was pretty brilliant. And then it just kind of starts falling apart. You know.
Elysium suffers from some of the same issue of Trek, of the baggage you bring to it, which is you go into Elysium as a geek and you're bringing District 9 with you when you go there. And District 9 is just such a wonderfully fresh first movie from a sci-fi director on a shoestring budget with an amazing performance. So you're going into it saying, okay, I'm bringing this baggage of this amazing high point where this person had managed to have the first movie of his career, and then you get into this movie, and it's not a bad... I think I have more problems with Trek than I do with Elysium, actively, but again, it's another forgettable... Once I was out of Elysium, I was just like, okay, I'm not gonna buy that movie. I'm not gonna watch that movie again. I'm not gonna share that movie with my friends.
I mean, it has a pretty unforgivable performance by Jodie Foster in it. It's really...
She didn't bother me, actually.
She bothered me.
She wasn't my problem with it. I just had... and it's funny, there's another summer movie that maybe I don't know if you have on your list, but we saw together, because of Oblivion.
That was the first one I had on my list.
That was the first. Elysium to me felt Oblivion and Elysium, actually I had the same kind of feeling walking out of, but I just had different expectations going in. Oblivion, I didn't really expect much, and it didn't under or overperform at all. It was fine. You have an actor who's giving their all in a role and really pushing for it.
Which Cruise always does.
Always does. And which is fine. There's nothing wrong. It's just a little bit derivative. A lot bit derivative of other sci-fi movies. And Elysium just kind of felt the same. I came out of both of those like...
honestly, I feel terrible saying this, but I feel like a lot of my my problems with Oblivion are compounded by the fact by people are coming and saying, "Oh, it's such a fresh take and it's such a great," because it's like the worst type of derivative film. I feel like films where people look at them and they're like, "Oh, that's so fresh," when really they're actually like bastardizing all these other classics or even recent films the most. That's what irks me, is when I'm just like, this is not original. Like, this is not an original concept.
It's a Frankenstein monster of all other movies.
All these other movies. And just because it looks pretty, and you might have these couple of, visual cues that look different from something else that's in one of these movies, that doesn't mean it's not straight ripping these other movies.
Cue my diatribe on Avatar.
Right, exactly. Well, we both feel the same way about Avatar, which is essentially the same way I feel about Oblivion, which is that, like, yeah, it's pretty to look at. Yeah, it has some decent performances, and Cruise, like always, is giving it his best go-around. But Oblivion's not a good movie. It's not. I would never consider it a good movie. And that was sort of the kickoff of the summer movie season for us. I had a feeling I was like, this is going to be a long summer.
And it was, yeah. And it's somewhat depressing because it feels like we're down on a lot of these movies, but I think it's important to go into the summer movies and have kind of expectations of seeing the police.
They're onto us.
Run! Of seeing something that is popcorn.
It's better than the Ice Cream Man.
Oh, God almighty. We'll tell that story at the end. We'll power through the rest of these. We kind of have talked about Man of Steel a little bit on here. Ben and I were pretty much in agreement on that, where it was just excess.
Too loud.
Too much stuff. Which is interesting. I think that's also another reason. I think I was already starting to get fatigue of explosions when I was watching Trek even, and that might be why I didn't maybe appreciate the set pieces in that movie as much as I could. I thought the end was like a big video game scene with them jumping from pod to pod to pod through the city and the giant ship crashing in the city. The destruction this summer to worlds both in the future and present day is staggeringly ridiculous. Like, I understand we can topple cities realistically with CGI now. We can't.
That doesn't mean you have to.
And it doesn't mean, and doing it in a PG-13 movie is just stupid. The Avengers got close, but they knew where to pull back. There weren't buildings falling. And the Avengers was kind of like, there's a lot of structural damage, and a lot of office spaces are going to have work closed on Monday.
Honestly, the best way that I like to put it is the old, idiom, which is, the definition of a gentleman is someone who can play bagpipes but doesn't.
Yeah.
It works the same way with film. The definition of a good filmmaker popcorn movie filmmaker, someone who knows they can blow up New York City but doesn't.
Yeah.
It's having the power to pick your spots and be like, oh, this would be a great flourish to put there. But then the overkill is just ridiculous.
I think that's the one thing that may have me, again, apprehensively excited about the Man of Steel versus Batman is that usually that happens in the second movie. Usually it's the sequel where they've done too much, which is a concern probably for the second Avengers movie for me a little bit on the outset right now, is that are they going to push it? Is Disney going to say we are on this gold mine, we need to push this bigger, everything has to be bigger. I think the ones that work are the ones that pull back from those moments, which I think bringing Batman into Man of Steel instantly grounds it. Literally, you have a character that can't be flying around in the sky like that. I'm hoping maybe they do something a little bit quieter and more intimate, which is probably also why I liked Iron Man 3 a lot, because that did that. Iron Man stripped him of the suit for a large portion of that movie and said, obviously the end, they kind of go, they more than make up for it at the end and make a crazy set piece, but I do like those quieter moments.
Agreed.
any other movies? I saw a couple other small ones.
Well, I mean, the one I wanted to say, my favorite movie that came out in the summer, like I said, I didn't see all the independent films that I wanted to. My favorite movie that came out in the summer and will be hard to beat as my favorite movie of the year is Upstream Color, Shane Carruth's Upstream Color, which blew my fucking mind.
I still need to watch that.
It was really strange because it was one of those films where I had such high expectations, and I was trying to actively temper my expectations. I was being like, okay, I've read some of the reviews of this film. It's going to be different than Primer. It's taking an acutely different approach with more visual, stuff like that. I can't be too expectant of where this movie's going to go. And the opening sequence had me riveted, and the first 20 minutes of that movie might be the most uncomfortable, like legitimately uncomfortable I've felt watching a movie in a long time, and it's very much by design. It's basically watching a woman get raped for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
No, I mean, you're not literally seeing a woman get raped, but you're seeing her lose herself against her will, and it's so incredibly well done. I was just like, I don't know how the film's going to go anywhere. And a lot of people do argue that was really interesting, but then the movie kind of meanders from there. And I just find it to be a very interesting contemplation of the self, what happens with the loss of self, complete loss of self, the fallout of that when you connect with somebody who has had a similar experience.
I got through maybe the first 10 minutes. My bigger issue with actually watching was that I the sound on it was really bizarre. Like, there were, like, moments that were too loud. And probably by design, actually. I just couldn't get the sound mix right, and I kept worried that I was gonna, like, blow my speakers, not blow my speakers, but, like, I would piss off my neighbors. But I couldn't hear the dialogue. Like, I couldn't hear what they were saying. It was kind of that mumblecore type thing. So I definitely need to revisit that one. I do want to say, I have, like, a list. I just, like, looking over here, I have a list of, like, 6 that I will do 30 seconds or less on, because they don't really deserve a lot more. These are ones that Ben has not seen, to my knowledge, and I'll kind of go backwards here. I watched R.I.P.D. because I'm a glutton for the Men in Black. I just like the Men in Black storyline. I like Ryan Reynolds. I like Jeff Bridges.
Sure.
The preview, even though it was silly, I liked the preview. I knew it was going to be bad going into it. It wasn't a complete mess. It's a poor man's Men in Black, but it's another one I think got unfairly pardon the pun, ripped apart. There are things to like in it, and there are things that are just ridiculous in it. This one earns my most awful movie this summer, and again, glutton for punishment, mainly because I got dragged to the first one, on a date where the girl loved the movie, and I instantly did not invite her back to my place after the date, which was Grown Ups, the first Grown Ups.
You saw Grown Ups
I
2?
watched the you know what? I had to know that someone would make as bad a movie as I heard it was. And everything you may have heard about it, and I know the movie grossed a crap ton of money, it is unforgivably awful. There's not a funny...
The first Grown Ups is unforgivably awful.
The first Grown Ups has moments I can argue are art compared to what they do in the second. The second one doesn't even allow you the moments where it's just 4 comedians sitting around running lines against one another, which I can argue is very much what This Is the End is. They just do it better than the old guys do it nowadays. But there were moments in the first one where I was like, okay, it's kind of fun to watch these 4 SNL guys. Well, Kevin James is the stand-in for Farley. But the second one has none of those moments. They just do these weird set pieces like David Spade getting stuck in a giant tire and rolling through the city that have no reason. Like, I don't even understand how someone is like, I've got this great funny idea. I don't know how to work it in, but let's do it. There's no one that, like, it's one of those that should have accidentally happened by way of plot, but it isn't. Just an awful movie. I saw We Are the Millers, which I actually thought was pretty fun. I like Sudeikis. The kid from Son of Rambo owns every single moment of that movie, is absolutely hysterical and has some of the funniest line deliveries I've seen in a while. I think a decent August comedy.
Which actually, before you even finish, I really do, one of the independent films I didn't see is Kings of Summer, which is supposed to be basically like
I just downloaded that, and the way
wow.
back, I can't get either. I really want to see both of those.
Yeah.
They're in the same vein. The one I did catch was Drinking Buddies. It was kind of in that same sort of indie summer movie. Drinking Buddies is
Mumblecore.
Mumblecore. It's really well done. Great performances.
I mean, it's a movie that's set around a brewery, so
yeah. I mean, it's kind of up.
Like,
yeah, it's set up for it. It's very well done, and
it's the type of movie I feel like that I would aspire to write in like 5 years.
Well, you say right, but then also, most of what I read is that it's like way largely improvised, including there's a moment at the end that ends the movie that's kind of a non. It reminded me of the end of Big Night, actually, which where they basically cook the eggs and you're waiting for something, but there isn't anything. That's the scene. There's a complete interaction between Olivia Wilde and Jake Johnson, that's completely unspoken moment that happens very quietly in a lunchroom between the two of them. That's completely improvised, no words, and it's wonderful. It's a great way to end the movie. Totally dug it. 2 animated movies. I saw both sequels. One to a movie that I adore with all my heart as my favorite Pixar movie, which was Monsters University. Monsters University, it's not bad, it was unnecessary. Didn't work for me. Did you just wink at me?
No, I was
okay.
I was like,
I was like, is that a signal for, I don't know what that is.
Yes, it's a signal.
And Despicable Me 2, which I watched, which was fine. It more Minions, I like the Minions.
It was Despicable Me 2. I mean,
yeah.
It's hard for me to pass judgment on a movie like that.
I will say there's a great fun fact about Despicable Me 2, which is the villain in that movie was cast and recorded up until, I believe they said 3 weeks before opening, with Al Pacino. Al Pacino did not like what they were putting on screen and pulled out of his contract, and they recast him with Benjamin Bratt. Benjamin Bratt from Law and Order and whatever.
I know who Benjamin Bratt is.
Benjamin Bratt came in like 3 weeks before that movie opened and recorded the entire part himself. And had to sync it with animation that had already been completed with Al Pacino.
You mean like
I'm the Spanish guy. That was Al Pacino up until a month or so before.
That's
opening.
really weird.
I was the most amazing fact because you do not notice it one bit at all in the movie.
I still remember, one of my wife's like inherent crushes is Jason Segel, and she never realized that Jason Segel does a voice and does the voice of the scientist, the assistant scientist guy, that guy. She was like, "Who's Jason Segel voice?" And I was like, "It's that scientist guy." She was like, "No, that's not Jason Segel." I was like, "Yeah, that's Jason
him doing
Segel."
His Andre the Giant.
Yeah.
Rock you go?
Not like that, but he's like, yeah. I can't follow you on this one, but I don't know. I thought it was really funny. But yeah,
that's pretty good.
It's hard to hate on that movie.
And the only other one I saw this summer to cap it off, odd one to finish on, it kind of makes sense, was The Purge. Which I watched The Purge. I also watched VHS 2, which is sort of a summer movie.
I still haven't seen VHS 2.
But, VHS 2 was fun. I recommend VHS 2 over The Purge a little bit more. The Purge is, I don't really understand all of the crazy, love for it. I kind of just found
There's
it to
crazy
be,
hate for it, too.
Yeah, I didn't hate it. It was just another one that, it wasn't, it wasn't overt enough either way for me to love or hate. It was just kind of like, that's an hour and a half that I'm not going to see again.
You're not going to get back.
but I'm not going to kill myself over it. So, so that was, it was a very interesting summer, for movies for sure. And there were, it's interesting, we tend to both kind of like the more scaled down the movies tend to be, for us at least, more popular. And I think that probably translated to the audience.
Yeah, there are a few films that I'm making sure that I'm in. One of the nice parts about having a bunch of the movie channels is that I'll record, the movies and watch them when I can. But I've obviously only heard great things about Blue Jasmine, like the new Woody Allen film, which I really want to see. Between that and Before Midnight, it's inexcusable that I missed it, even with all the stuff that was going on this summer. It really is inexcusable that I missed it in the theater.
I'll make a jump drive for you and Beth as you have kids now present with a bunch of the summer movies of the small.
I disagree with that in principle, but
so you just watch them on HBO for $7 a month, or Netflix
HBO pays
for $7 a month.
Yeah, but there are a few other films I really want to see that came out in the summer that I missed out on. Like I said, I didn't see Kings of Summer, which I really wanted to see. I didn't see Frances Ha, which I wanted to see. I didn't know
that one.
Yeah, I mean, there are lots of independent films that were highly lauded or that were considered very interesting that I was not able to catch up on. But
okay, you'll get there. Don't worry about it, big guy.
I know.
You'll be all right. Anyway, this has been our summer recap. I hope you guys enjoyed what you heard tonight. The usual website, lastpintprod.com, the Twitter at lastpintprod, the Facebook at facebook.com/lastpint.
See, even though we always are going to mess it up with one.
One of them,
if you would like to get a beer, go to Guinness.com. If you would like to try out for world record, go to Guinness World Records.
It just reminds me of the world
records.
Shit, I don't even know.
Who knows?
It just reminds me of the when what's his name, Rick Moranis did his country album, and he has the whole song that's just about like a person on the phone. And it's like, press 1 if you love me, press 2 to go home. Like, and it's just this whole. That's pretty much our website. You guys, the easiest thing, just go to the website, lastpintprod.com. You will find anything you could possibly want to know about us or about Last Pint Productions. We're hoping this fall we're going to kind of get back into the swing of our writing stuff.
Yeah.
I'm going to be writing a little bit more for the blog. We're going to be working a little bit more on our original properties. Maybe we'll do a podcast on some of our properties.
And talk about the stuff that we actually have done.
Yeah, and maybe a little bit kind of on our process, which is not necessarily the process, but it's the one that works for us. So any of you out there that are kind of budding writers or existing writers or looking for tips on how to not be a successful established writer, but
completely unsuccessful and
but to write really, really good material, we can kind of give you guys a little bit of an education on that.
Yes.
Agreed. Yes, agreed. This has been The New Way with Ben and Matt.
Thanks. Nice radio voice there.
I know. Oh, and you know what you're going to do tonight?
What am I going to do?
You, sir, are going to record the intro or the adult content warning.
I'll do it right now.
Actually, yeah, we'll just tag it on to the end here. I'm not going to stop recording because I'm a little afraid with the tablet that we'll lose our thing. So I'm going to pause from talking, and Ben's going to give us a little...
Okay, so this is for the tag?
Yeah.
So we're allowed to do the tag at the end, I guess. So we can
No. I'm going to just take this audio from the end and through the magic of editing. I'm going to make it its own file.
I understand.
So right now, we're going to sign off.
We're going to say bye, and then I'm going to record it. And so the clusterfuck that you're going to hear at the beginning of the episode is actually going to start right now. It's time travel. Once again, time travel is what we specialize in.
And actually, I'm going to make Ben. I'm actually going to record it backwards as well and play it at the end of this as like an Easter egg. You just keep listening past the sign off of the President of the United States. All right, guys. Thanks so much for listening. We'll talk to you next week. Cheers.
Cheers.